All right, thanks, Jim. And our last speaker is Alex Lusberg, Vice President of Marketing from Lyris.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian and James. Very insightful. I'm probably going to take a step up a little bit here, and I want to start first by asking everyone a question. Raise your hand if you're a marketer. Pretty much everyone in the room? Almost everyone in the room? Raise your hand if you're scared of data, and be honest now. Big data. Like, does everybody here understand statistical algorithms and all of these? I mean, it's scary, right? It's scary. And the reason I want to take a little bit of a step back here is I actually do want to help define the problem for marketers. You know, what does it mean for a marketer? What does big data mean for a marketer? More importantly, what does it mean for your customers? And how can you begin to address this opportunity in a way that's actually actionable and not daunting? So what I want to talk through today is I don't want to repeat what my presenters talked about. You know, everybody talks about the explosion of data. I actually want to have a version of the slide that talks about how many times this slide has been shown. But the reality is that this is really exploding. And like my co-presenters talked about, marketers today understand that there is value locked in data, but they don't really know how to access it. Certainly, enterprise software, the next frontier for enterprise software, is marketing, right? It's really understanding these customer needs and behaviors and being able to act upon them. But there's not a real clear path for doing so without these very, very large-scale initiatives. The need to hire armies of data scientists. There's a recent study by McKinsey that said that the number of data scientists that we're going to need, I think, will outstrip the number of diapers that will be in production next year. I mean, the numbers are just daunting. But the reality is that most marketers certainly believe that data is going to help you drive better marketing decisions. Yet, most marketers say they don't do a really good job of actually collecting that data. And that's why I ask, you know, I'm a marketer who markets to marketers, so I feel like I really understand in my own environment at Lyris. We have 31 different disparate systems. We're trying to use that to target more effectively. It's a challenge. And at the end of the day, it's really hard to measure ROI if you have all of this disparate data. So we have the data, but very few marketers actually know how to access it and use it. And this is all from a recent IAB study, and I can share the link with you. But again, the problem, like my co-presenters talked about, is today a customer can really be understood by us marketers as a collection of their interactions with the enterprise. So we're talking about transactions, order history, demographic information, preference information, social behavior, mobile behaviors, and there's been a whole set of technologies that have arisen to help manage interactions in these different channels. The problem is, from a customer's perspective, this is disconnected, right? Customers don't really care about channels, and I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people over the last day and a half. I've talked to web analysts, I've talked to email analysts, I've talked to social media experts, I've talked to data analysts, but there's really not a connection between these different efforts to really focus on the customer as the channel of one. As a customer, I traverse these channels. And you got to get it right no matter how I interact with your company. And this is really what I see as the big data challenge or the big data opportunity for marketers. How do you market and message effectively to the channel of one, regardless of how they're choosing to interact with your company? So in some ways, big data for marketers is how do you enable access to all of this information that you already have, but today takes blood, sweat, and Excel to gather and act upon it, right? I mean, and we all do this. Even I do it, and we're implementing and drinking our own champagne all the time. But it's really hard to get all this information together. And so you have to understand it and interpret it, and that's the challenge. So I want to kind of share with you some tips that I think might help you get this started and also help you build the case in your organizations to really talk about big data in a way that's actionable for marketers. And so, you know, we've seen a lot of these interesting kind of spaghetti type, diagrams of how an individual might traverse your organization. The persona that I like to use is the mythical Rob Thompson, who likes to kayak, and he's buying kayak information, and he is looking at the weather and sharing information on social channels with his friends. You know, we have the ability as marketers to really understand all of these data points, but how do you kind of gather them to target Robert with the right offer at the right time, at the right place, on the right device? And more importantly, how do you avoid mistakes? And the mistake is, this actually happens to me a lot. For those of you who travel, I check into a hotel, and immediately upon checking in, I get a discount for a stay on the hotel for my next stay. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a little frustrating to me. I wish I would have gotten that before I got to the hotel. And maybe if you check the fact that when I stayed last, I got a massage and you give me a spa discount, that's actually more meaningful for me as a customer, and it's actually going to drive more revenue for the hotel. So it's about not just how do you optimize your engagement, but also how do you avoid the common mistakes of going on a Best Buy and buying a big screen TV, and then for the next 3 months I get big screen TV emails. I'd rather get something around, very simple stuff that as marketers, it's challenging to really connect the dots. So I think it's a brave new world when we talk about big data. I think, we all understand that marketing has changed from going to the top of the hills with our bullhorns and telling people what to think and really targeting folks with scheduled emails that batch and blast or spray and pray, as I like to talk about, that are really trying to get these transactions and that are really built around channels. And I really want to challenge all of you, regardless of your specialty, when you leave this conference, to not think about channels, right? Think about your customer. Your customer is the channel. And so customers, like we heard, Brian and James talk about, they traverse through a journey, right? And throughout this journey, your brand needs to be found. And it doesn't matter what channel that you're trying to reach them out, it has to be with real-time relevance. And so in order to get that real-time relevance, you need to put in certain systems, certain infrastructure, certain processes so that you can start to build that meaningful relationship or that conversation or that engagement that ultimately is going to drive value. And so it's not about channels, it's about customers. It's about relationships. And so how do you get there? I think there's three very key components that you want to talk about. The first one is you need a big data architecture. And so what does that mean? That is really the ability to capture this dynamic profile and within a single location pull in, it doesn't have to be all the data, but what are the 10 or 15 most important predictive elements about your customers that are going to help you target them with greater efficiency. And so it could be, again, loyalty behavior, it could be purchase behavior, it could be social and location behavior. It varies by industry, but it needs to be in a single location, again, whether it's Hadoop, HBase, that actually is scalable, can capture structured, unstructured data, that is connected to your enterprise. One great example for me in my day-to-day work is, Lyris is a digital marketing automation platform fueled by big data. And we have 5,000 customers that deploy messaging, email, social, mobile, and other campaigns using our software. We do it as well, but we do that more in a B2B environment. I actually want to pull all my information from Salesforce, right, around where they are in the opportunity, all my campaign responses. I want to pull all the information from where they've navigated on my site, what downloads they've had, and then actually build campaigns around all these different touch points. But I need to have that all in a single location and not in Excel. And to do that, we have these modern technologies that have been pioneered by the likes of Facebook and Google. They're not modern anymore, but they're modern for the enterprise, right? In the enterprise, we're still on these LAMP stack technologies that require a lot of batch processing. Big data and the ability to target in real time requires a new way to architect and organize this information. So that's number one. Number two is, how do you interpret this data and turn it into insight? How do you interpret this data and turn it into intelligence that you can act upon? And these are some of the predictive models that we've heard talked about today. A lot of these predictive models, a lot of these algorithms, they've actually been around for 20, 30, 40 years. Statistics is not new, right? It's how do you apply this in a way that is very scalable and automated to this data so you can begin to automatically surface insights. And there are a lot of tools that help you do that. And they might be BI tools, or they might be incorporated into your campaign design tools, but you have to connect the data with the ability to understand that data. And so that is typically where conversations around big data end. But I think that the third and really, really critical component is how do you act on it, right? How do you make these insights available in a campaign design environment where you can actually start to send targeted communications to your customers based on these surface segments? I think the points made about segments is a really good one. Segments are really probably where you're going to get the most immediate and real-time value in big data, really understanding on those based on behaviors and transactions, what are your most profitable segments. And so bringing these three pieces together of data, intelligence, and the ability to act on that intelligence also needs to be connected. And one way to connect that is through an event processor, right? And so event processor technologies, there's a variety of open source and also kind of packaged software available that helps you pass along that multi-source data into an analytics engine that turns it into insight. Then that insight can be passed along directly into your design environment where you can build a campaign for a specific audience segment with dynamic content that's going to be relevant and personalized. And that event processor also can govern how frequently and how you time and cadence that communication to your customers. And this is really a process, and it's around marketing with relevance to the channel of one. And that channel of one is a segment, and it could span all of your customers. But again, don't think about it in terms of what is the new social technology that I need, and what's my way to engage through Twitter, or what's my way to engage through email or through display. Think about your customer, right? And think about specifically how you're going to get that segment and that message tailored to the segment using data and analytics. So it's a different orientation, probably a little bit higher level than what we've heard, but as a marketer, this is how we make the case in our organizations for why big data is a big deal. The last thing that I want to end this, and this is a little bit controversial, but there aren't enough data scientists in the world. And certainly, you know, if you have large enterprise, trillions and trillions of data points, certainly there will be big BI initiatives that are well-funded, and there's data scientists available to kind of help you, optimize. But the reality is that most businesses, and just the dearth of data science, the important thing is you want to, first of all, kind of set your goals and objectives and start in an area where you have the data readily available. And so, for example, I was in the morning talk about email. Email is not particularly sexy, right? It's been around for a long time, but it's also one of the most well-understood channels that exists. It's one of the most mature channels that exists. It's one of the highest ROI channels, and you can really measure it, right? More so than you can many of these other emerging channels. So start with something that you know, and something that has a lot of data associated with it, and then start to analyze that, understand it, and make sure that the technology investments that you make can take this information and take these insights and make them actionable for you. So that if you're able to surface a segment, be able to build that segment within your campaign design environment and not do so through a week-long process of basically asking your data analyst to pull up these segments that make sense in Excel so that you can then market, because after a week it'll be too late. So the automation is around making the data available in an area that you understand, and then being able to make it actionable through campaign design tools that integrate directly with those insights. So I think, again, just short 15, 20 minutes, but hopefully we have a little bit of time for questions. I think we went from a very specific, technical view, and I want to kind of roll it up to a marketer's view and a customer channel of one view. So, and if you have any questions, I'm Alex at Lyris, and I can share all of the background information and research that we've had on this presentation.